What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be going through my predictions from the start of the 2024-25 season. Little spoiler, it wasn't great. 20th, I predicted Southampton, got this bang on. I mean, the writing was on the wall. Russell Martin is an awful manager, probably the worst we've ever seen in the Premier League. It was always going to be a struggle with Southampton. 19th, I went with Brentford. Now, I did have some reason for this. I said Thomas Frank would leave this season. I thought Tony was going to stay and poison the dressing room. That didn't happen. And obviously Frank didn't leave either. Thomas Frank is a big reason as to why this was wrong, because I did predict that their fullbacks would be injured for most of the time. They didn't have any real backup fullbacks, but Keane Lewis-Potter, who is a left winger, did a phenomenal job at left back. So I've got to applaud him for that. Great player. Hopefully we see him playing as a forward more next season at another club, ideally. 9 places wrong. This is awful. 18th, I went with Leicester. Again, got this bang on. I'll take that, 2 out of the 3 relegated teams perfectly placed. They're doing okay under Cooper. Van Nistelrooy came in, ruined everything by benching Buonanotte. They went 9 home games in a row without scoring. They lost every single one of them. Like 4 months they went without scoring a goal at the King Power. That is embarrassing. They'd have a bit of resurgence at the end, and obviously it was nice to see Jeremy Monga getting minutes, but overall, Van Nistelrooy, horrible manager. 17th, I predicted Ipswich, and they finished 19th, so 2 places wrong. Ipswich did buy a lot of players, but they kind of had to, because a lot of their squad, players that came up with them from League One, and yeah, it was obviously going to take them a while to gel. McKenna never really settled on an 11. It was hard to, given the fact that none of the players were really performing, except for Liam Delap, who was fantastic and who will go to Chelsea and be fantastic there, unfortunately. 16th, I predicted Wolves, and they finished 16th as well. Right now, this is going really quite well, I can't lie. Maybe we should just end the video here. Thank you for watching, I'll see you soon. Obviously lost Pedro Neto in the summer, and although he didn't really do great things at Chelsea and they didn't really miss him a lot, the start of the season was really poor. They did have a hard fixture list, but defensive were awful. Pereira came in, they were much better. Cunha fantastic, Strand Larsen fantastic. Cunha's gone. Wolves could be in a bit of trouble next season. Now 15th, I had Everton, who actually finished in 13th. David Moyes came in and made Everton much harder to beat. They had a lot of draws under him, but they didn't lose many games. They had some big wins in there as well. I mean, Beto stepped up a lot more this season, especially when Moyes came in. He got 8 goals, which is not too bad. Calvert-Lewin, very disappointing again. Unfortunately, we didn't see enough of Ndiaye and McNeil. Both of them had spells where they were brilliant, but both of them were injured during different parts of the season. Hopefully next season they can stay fit, because Everton, I think, are actually going to be very good next season. Obviously new ownership, new stadium, everything is set up for them to have a good run now. They should be able to spend some money. They've got quite a few very good players like McNeil, Ndiaye, Alfred's being made permanent, Branthwaite, O'Brien, even James Garner, Idrissa Gueye, who is always at the top of the defensive numbers. Like, in terms of statistics, tackles, penalty, he's always at the top of all those stats. He is still very good. They obviously need a lot more in terms of depth, and fullbacks, probably still a striker, because Beto did go for a spell where he wasn't very good. The future's looking very bright for Everton. 14th, I had Fulham, who actually finished in 11th. I thought the Palhinha departure would affect them a lot more than it did. Marco Silva is a genius. He's a fantastic manager, as much as I hate saying that. Same with Thomas Frank at Brentford. Sander Berger was brilliant, same with Lukic, whoever played out of them two, or if they both played, always very good. Iwobi hit different levels this season, fantastic, so versatile as well. Jimenez got 12 goals, which is very decent for an aging guy. He still did the business. Harry Wilson, when he was fit, was fantastic. Traore had some great games. Overall, they had a great season for them. In 13th, I had Nottingham Forest, who actually finished in 7th. So although I was 6 places wrong, I'm actually not too disappointed with this, because nearly every single person that I watched predictions of had Nottingham Forest either in the bottom 3 or just outside. There were only a couple others that had them where I had them, like I think the Irish guy did, and I think JLA and Spencer FC as well. Everyone else had them either going down or in that relegation conversation. And it was just bizarre to me, because their squad is really good. However, I was also horribly wrong, because I did not trust Nuno. I said their squad was very good, but I didn't think he would get the best out of it. And if they didn't have him and they had a better manager, they'd probably be in the European fight. And they were in a European fight because of him. He was very good. Although they did tail off towards the end of the season, I think every Forest fan would have taken 7th at the start. But obviously, because it could have been so much better, because they were 3rd for so long, is a little bit disappointing that they're only in the Conference League. Marinakis is one of the most ambitious owners in football. Forest will not lose many of their stars, if any of them. I wouldn't be surprised to see everyone stay. and they will invest, they will bring in more players. They'll probably win the Conference League next season. But I had Bournemouth, who ended up finishing in 9th. Bournemouth were a bit of a weird side this season. Like, they went through a mad injury crisis and simultaneously went on a fantastic winning run, and when the players started coming back, they started to fall off a little bit. But there were so many good performers, you know, defensively, Kerkez, Howson, Zabani, all fantastic. Ryan Christie in the midfield, unsung hero of this Bournemouth team, man, he is brilliant. Even Lewis Cook was very, very good. Kluivert, Semenyo, they both had spells where they were fantastic. Evan Nilsson as well did a fairly good job. I think he'll be a lot better next season though. The issue with Bournemouth is that so many of the players are linked away, like Howson's already gone, Kerkez is likely to leave, Pepper was only in on loan, even Zabani's been linked with a move away. If they lose their whole defence, that is a problem, because it could take them a while to gel next season. They have done very well in the transfer window over the last few seasons, so whatever happens, you would trust them to make the right call. 11th, I had Brighton, who ended up finishing in 8th. Brighton in the second half of the season were really good. Like Feb until the middle of March, they were brilliant without Lewis Dunk. Right, they were winning so many games in a row. They were on a brilliant run. They were looking like they were going to be in Europe. And then Lewis Dunk came back and they started to fall off a cliff. They were losing loads of games. At the end of the season, Hutster dropped them again, and Brighton started winning again. You know, they won their last 3 in a row. But their team is very, very decent, and they had a lot of injuries this season as well. With Facundo Buonanotte, the future star boy of football, coming back from loan next season, I do think Brighton have a very good chance of being in Europe. Now in 10th, I had Manchester United, who actually finished in 15th. And although I was 5 places wrong, I am once again quite proud of this prediction, because so many people thought they were going to be in the top 4. Everyone was like, oh, they had a fantastic transfer window. They're going to be brilliant. And yes, I did rate their transfer window very highly, but they had Ten Hag as their manager. Obviously, Amram's come in and done very poorly as well. You know, can't hide from that. But he made it clear from the start that that was going to be the case this season. I think they will be a bit better next season, no Europe either. But they do have a lot of issues in that squad. A lot of the squad just doesn't fit his system. And because of how much money they've spent over the last few years, they can't even go out and just buy whoever they want to fix it, because they need to raise funds. The attack was absolutely horrendous. Why on earth did they just spend £70 million on Rasmus Højlund? That is a mystery, man. Garnacho, very overrated by their fan base. Defensively, they were okay though. Like, Maguire was fantastic. Yoro, when he came back after his injury, was really good, and he's obviously only going to get better. Now in 9th, I had Chelsea, and they finished up in 4th. But to be fair, if they had lost to Nottingham Forest and Villa hadn't bottled it on the last day, they could have finished 7th, and I would have only been 2 places off. It was very tight from 4th to 7th, and even 3rd to 7th. It was so close. This could have been a lot worse as well, man. Chelsea were looking like title challengers at the start of the season. They started so well. Second half of the season, it did collapse, like especially from late December to March. They were absolutely awful. But at the end of the season, they did pick it up again. Especially at home, their home form was really good at the end. Unfortunately, their team is very young and they are only going to get better. I don't really think Maresca's style of play suits the place particularly well, because he is a possession-based guy. He wants his team to have 80% possession, just pass it around the back. But this Chelsea team is so geared towards counter-attacking and, just transitions and stuff like Madueke, Neto, Cole Palmer, Nicholas Jackson, even Caicedo. They all suit that style of football. And when Chelsea were playing that style, in the first half of the season, they were getting much better results. But overall, I think you do have to say it was a good season for Chelsea. Getting into Champions League, winning the Conference League. The Lap already coming through as well, he's going to be fantastic there. They do need to probably sign a bit more experience now that they are going into the Champions League, but overall, there's a promising future for Chelsea. In 8th, I had Crystal Palace, and they finished in 12th. Why did I predict them to finish so high? I don't even like Crystal Palace, man. Why did I back them so much? To be fair, they were actually very good after November onwards, but they just started the season so badly that it was always going to be difficult for them to break into the top half. But I think all of them would have taken the season because they won the FA Cup. Salah did take a little while to get going, but once he did, he was really good. He ended up on 14 goal contributions, which is very, very decent. Eze ended the season so well, Mateta as well. Both of them fantastic. Wharton ran the show most games. Lacroix, one of the signings of the season. I don't think enough people are talking about his impact, man. He was brilliant. Dean Henderson, Munoz as well. Pretty much the whole team was fantastic. And obviously going into European battle next season, they do need more squad depth. I don't think there's a great deal of it, although I think Roman Essa will get a lot more game time next season. Defensively especially, their depth just isn't there. They could be losing Gahey, so they do need to bolster that a little bit. In 7th, I predicted West Ham United. Oh, what was I thinking, man? Finished 14th. I was 7 places off with this. The transfer business was fantastic, man. Like, on paper, some players like Todibo, who was a bit disappointing, but he was injured a lot, so I think he will be better next season. Wan-Bissaka was very, very good. He won their player of the season, and rightly so, man. He was fantastic wherever he played in pretty much every game. But players like Kudus and Paqueta were really disappointing this season, man. Bowen, as usual, fantastic. But the other two, just so poor. Fulkrug injured all the time. I don't know why they signed him ahead of John Duran. That was just a mystery. Hillman started well under Lopetegui. But overall he was pretty mediocre. Definitely was not worth the money they paid for him. The West Ham team is getting on a bit now though, but they do have some good young players come through like George Arthur, who was very good for Bristol City, and Ollie Scholes, who we've seen getting some game time. It is imperative they keep Jarrod Bowen. I think he will stay. Bowen did his job, especially at the end of the season. He was phenomenal, but no one else really helped him out, apart from Wan-Bissaka. Another stinker coming up in 6th up at Liverpool, who won the league. After losing Klopp, I did think Liverpool were going to have a little bit of a slump this season, like Manchester United did when Ferguson left, like Arsenal did when Wenger left. But Slot came in and did really well. And although Liverpool were lucky in quite a lot of games, like Van Dijk had about 7 red cards, the way he improved Salah, for example, his output was ridiculous this season. Gravenberch turned into one of the best defensive midfielders in the league, despite never really playing there before in his life. McAllister, again, very good. Even Luis Diaz ended up on 13 goals, despite his inconsistency. Gakpo looked pretty good whenever he played too. Even Szoboszlai was better this season. It wasn't great by any means, but better than he was last season. Genuinely, Slot very much surprised me. I didn't really know a lot about him before he joined, but I did think he might struggle, going to a new league, and the fact that it's such a legendary manager that you're trying to replace. But he did fantastically well. In Liverpool's business that they're potentially doing, like Wirtz, Kirkes, areas that they desperately need to address are being, if they do address them, they could win it again next season. Oh my god, 5th I had Tottenham, who finished in 17th. Why did I back Postecoglou, man? This guy is the worst manager I've ever seen at a big club, man. Like, he is absolutely awful. I don't care that he's won the Europa League. The Europa League's the weakest it's ever been. Do you know how many teams would kill for the run Tottenham had, bro? They had Bodo Glimt in the semi-finals. AZ Alkmaar in the last 16. The only half-decent team they played was Eintracht Frankfurt, who had lost Marmoush. And I don't know why so many Spurs fans are acting like it was an unbelievable achievement. They were the favourites, or the second favourites, heading into the tournament, fam. And I think the reason why they believe it was such an underdog story is because of how bad they were in the league, which was Postecoglou's own fault, fam. Yes, they had a lot of injuries, cool, but not enough to warrant a 17th place finish. He caused off those injuries by overplaying players and not rotating. Jed Spence only came in when Udogie had a really serious injury. The kid saved them in the Europa League in that final group stage game, and they were never heard from again. Mikey Moore got a couple minutes at the end on the wrong wing. The players they had available were still more than good enough to finish much higher than 17th. I'm not buying this injury excuse because Brighton had a lot of injuries and finished in 8th and went on a very good run. Same with Bournemouth, who finished in 9th. If Tottenham had finished 12th, for example, then yeah, cool, you can blame the injuries. But Postecoglou has to go, man. Because if he stays Tottenham, you will finish 17th again next season, potentially even lower, and you'll be knocked out in the league phase of the Champions League. Alright? Cut your losses and say goodbye. If you can get Marc Silva or Thomas Frank, you get them in because they're significantly better managers than Ange Postecoglou. 4th, I had Aston Villa, who ended up finishing in 6th. The start of the season wasn't amazing, they definitely struggled after European nights. But after January, the business conducted was quite good. I think they won 9 out of their last 11 league games or something like that, which was very good. And the fact that that didn't get them into the top 4 just shows how bad their start was. They could be in a bit of PSR hot water, but they're in the Europa League. I know Unai Emery loves the Europa League. They're going to win it next season. But they did very well in the Champions League. They almost knocked PSG out, who ended up making a mockery of the competition, man. How do you win a final 5-0 with such a young team, bro? Fair play to Luis Enrique, man. What a genius. I think Villa will be disappointed, especially considering they lost on the last day. In 3rd, I had Newcastle, and they finished in 5th. Again, if they just beaten Everton on the last day, they would have got 4th. The end of the season wasn't particularly great. They lost to Arsenal, they drew with Brighton. But for the most part, it was a brilliant season from Eddie Howe. He's an absolute genius. I love him, my favourite manager in the world. Although Newcastle's first 11 is really good, their depth was not there. And despite having a fair amount of injuries, for them to get into the Champions League and win a domestic cup for the first time in 7 years, I think it's an unbelievable season for Newcastle. Every single Newcastle would have taken that at the start of the season. I think 99% of them would have taken one or the other at the start of the season. They got both. Due to the fact they haven't invested in 3 windows, they should be able to sign a fair few players this time. And that will definitely be needed because the Champions League, will take a lot out of them, especially with the style of football they play. They desperately need some depth because, like I said, their first 11 is fantastic, but they don't have a lot else. Like Lewis Miley's good, Willock and Wilson are their main other subs, and they're both not great anymore. But Eddie Howe, I'll keep saying it, man, genius of a manager. In second, I had Manchester City. They finished in third. Disappointing season for them, but Pep Guardiola only has himself to blame. Of course, Rodgers' injury was huge, and it did affect their season a lot, but it should not have, because they still have a very good team, right? Especially after January when they brought in Marmoush Gonzalez, who hardly played for some reason, Kusanov, who hardly played for some reason, Vita Reese, who didn't play at all. Gundogan, Kovacic, Bernardo Silva were constantly stinking out the pitch. I know Kovacic was okay towards the end, but for most of the season he wasn't great. Nico Gonzalez, whenever he played, looked really good, but for some reason he just wasn't getting any game time. Nico O'Reilly as well, you know, he was put into the team, who's in really well. As soon as Akanji comes back, he's dropped. And Akanji's been awful. The way he limits maverick players like Doku and Savinho, hopefully if Cherki comes, he doesn't do the same to him. Echeverry too. And I predicted Arsenal to win the league, and they ended up finishing in second. Disappointing season from Arsenal, but to be honest with you, I can't blame them too much, because the amount of bad refereeing decisions they had towards them, the amount of injuries they had, to still finish in second is actually pretty good. The overall play was really decent, you know, just in the box, they weren't good enough. They had obviously Havertz injured, Jesus injured. They didn't even have a striker for the last 3 months of the season. And defensively, they also had so many injuries. Saka was missing for like 3 months, but there were bright spots, you know, getting to the Champions League semi-final, Lewis Skelly breaking through. Ranieri hopefully will get a lot more game time next season, because he is a very talented player too. Zubimendi coming in is big. I think they need a left winger much more than they need a striker. I think Havertz is more than good enough if you've got a very good inside forward. And obviously Saka can't really play that role because they rely on his creativity so much. I'm surprised they're not in for Wirtz as well. Like, just so Odegaard, man, he's a good player, but he isn't creative enough. And if you were to sign Wirtz, you would allow Saka to play closer to goal too. Well, some of the decisions they got, man, like a lot of their red cards were bollocks. Some of the penalties that were given against them were just really stupid. Some penalties like weren't given for them. Again, just criminal. Honestly, the PGMOL really do need to be investigated, because it was a farce. If we use Spencer FC's scoring system where you get 1 point per place you were wrong per team, I got 72 points, which is atrocious. I mean, it's so much worse than I did last season. Some of the predictions were my fault, like Liverpool and Brentford, I got horribly wrong. But some of the others, like Man United, Tottenham, Nottingham Forest, I don't think anyone really predicted them to do as bad as they did in terms of Man United and Tottenham, and as well as Nottingham Forest did. So those ones I'm not too disappointed with, but Brentford and Liverpool, I definitely should have done better. And it's probably same with Chelsea as well. Next season, I'm going to try not to be as biased, and hopefully I'll do a lot better when I do this video again next year.